All right. As everyone starts to come in, thank you again for joining us so much this evening for our MIT Executive MBA Healthcare panel. All right, my name is Amber Ackerman. I'm the director of the executive degree programs here at MIT Sloan. In my role, I oversee the day-to-day business operations, as well as manage the teams that support the program delivery. I'm joined tonight by my colleagues, Chrissy and Mike, who all have introduced themselves now.
Thank you, Amber. Hi, everyone. My name is Chrissy Delore. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Associate Director of Marketing and Recruiting on the Executive Degree Programs team. The vertical that I am primarily in charge of is our email campaigns and strategies. So if you got an email reminder about tonight, that's from me. And so I'm so glad that you are here. You'll hear from me later on in the presentation. Mike, I'll throw it to you.
Great. Thanks, Chrissy. My name's Mike McCauley. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Marketing and Recruiting for the MIT Executive MBA and MIT Sloan Fellows MBA programs. Really glad everyone is here tonight. My primary responsibility is to lead the marketing and recruiting team, set the strategy. I'll be a bit behind the scenes tonight, answering some questions that you may have. But without any further ado, let's get going. Amber.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, we can kick it off with the agenda. So first, I'm going to start with the introduction to the MIT Executive MBA. Then I'm going to hand it over to Chrissy to drill down a little bit into healthcare at MIT. And probably most importantly, we're going to be sure to save time for your questions. And during that section, we're going to be joined by some of our fabulous alumni who can talk a little bit about their experience leading up to, during, and post EMBA program. All right, so starting first with the intro to the MIT EMBA. I can't talk about the program without talking about the mission of MIT Sloan. So the MIT Institute, the Sloan School, as well as the EMBA program are all very mission-driven. The mission of MIT Sloan is to develop principled, innovative leaders who improve the world and generate ideas that advance management practice. Here at Sloan, we're in a really unique position, and so are our students, to put what's being learned in the classroom immediately into practice in the real world. Looking at the EMBA experience overall, it is a general management 20-month program. So the 20 months are comprised of 26 weekend sessions. Now, to us, a weekend is Friday and Saturday versus the traditional Saturday and Sunday. So you'll come to campus roughly every 2 to 3 weeks. There are times where you're coming every other week, but the average is that 2 to 3 week time frame. So there will be 4 week-long modules in addition to those 26 weekend sections, and those are spread out roughly every 6 months strategically throughout your time here. There is also an opportunity for an international week-long project as part of Global Labs, which is something I'll talk a little bit more about later. It's important to know that you're going to receive the same degree, an MBA degree, as the traditional 2-year MBA and the Sloan Fellows MBA. The course requirements and classroom hours are the same. MIT EMBA students can expect roughly 15 to 20 hours of coursework outside of the classroom, and this, of course, can vary on the subject and the skill set of the student at the time. Looking at a high-level overview of the curriculum, I'll first start with how the weekends are broken down. So this can be described as analytical frameworks as well as business essentials. So the analytical frameworks are kind of the techniques used for analyzing business challenges and opportunities. So an organizational processes or a system dynamics course. Then the business essentials are kind of what's a functional expertise important to general managers. So this would be accounting or marketing. There are 4 integrated modules, so those 4 week-long sessions that I mentioned that are spread throughout the program. You'll first start your first October with LIM, which is Leading in Integrative Management. And so this kind of focuses on rapidly changing companies. So it's affectionately known as Walmart Week, but we have integrated Amazon into the curriculum. Second, you'll have Innovation-Driven Entrepreneurial Advantage, or Idea Week, which focuses on all the skills to pitch and start your own company. Now, students can pitch their own idea at this time or join a project pitched by one of their classmates, and throughout the week, work on developing a product that they can pitch to the class overall. Then in your second October, we have LGC, Leading in a Global Context, which focuses on macroeconomics and global market strategy. And then you'll close out the program with another week-long module, LWI, Leading with Impact, where you'll take everything you've learned over the 20 months and help a local nonprofit solve an organizational issue. So action learning is rooted in all of the courses within the EMBA and is a huge part of MIT and MIT Sloan. But there are two courses that specifically focus on action learning. The first being Organizations Lab, or OLAB. And this is where you'll spend roughly 6 months working on solving a problem within your own organization. Then we have Global Labs, which is that week-long option for the international trip that I discussed, where you'll work on solving, kind of in a consultant function, an issue for a multinational company. And finally, while the EMBA curriculum is primarily lockstep, meaning the courses build on one another, there are opportunities each January, including when you're an alum, to come and take courses that are outside of the core curriculum. So this year in January, we have 22 offerings spread over 4 days. And you'll also get the opportunity in your second and final spring to take 3 additional elective options. And so with that, I will now hand it over to Chrissy to dive a little deeper into healthcare at MIT.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amber. So of course we have a ton of offerings at MIT Sloan. And so we would be remiss to not focus on that because we do focus a lot on it. And so there are 2 things I'd like to mention here. The Initiative for Health Systems Innovation, or HSI, at MIT Sloan is focused on improving healthcare as a whole, both in the United States and abroad. And so their mission is to improve health by discovering transformative and sustainable innovations through research and education with leaders in the field. So during the spring term, the initiative hosts a guest speaker series, providing a forum for experienced researchers and practitioners to talk about their cutting edge work. HSI also hosts the Healthcare Certificate, which is popular among MIT Sloan students, particularly those who either want to transition into the healthcare, biotech, pharma space, or those who already work in one of those fields in the area, in the industry, and want to broaden their knowledge into other aspects of the field. And so you can read the next section on your own, but you'll see that there's no shortage of resources at MIT Sloan, from conferences and clubs, electives, and of course, research and organizational connections. There are plenty of ways that the school is plugged into this industry. You can imagine that our students, while they are active members of the cohort, they're getting to know one another. They're meeting up and, trading, not necessarily secrets, but, talking about what's happening in their fields as things are happening too. And so, there are plenty of ways that you can get involved right here. To the next slide, we, always highlight this in all of our presentations. We want you to really see yourself among leaders. And so these numbers are from the class of 2024. Each cohort is made up of 126 global executives. We have people that are coming in from all around the world and the country to campus in Kendall Square in Cambridge. And 66% of those people are outside of Massachusetts. So while we do have people that are in state, we do have a lot of people that travel in for those class weekends that Amber mentioned. 53% are of an international origin. The average age of work experience that our cohort has is 17 years. We have 33% of women in the class of 2024. In the class of 2025, we have 38%, which is super, super cool. But the most important thing about this program, the MIT Executive MBA, is that 100% of our students are employed full-time. We're highly focused on action learning in the program because we really want you to be able to take all the skills that you're learning during those class weekends, during those module weeks, and apply it, once you get back to work on Monday. And so here are some examples of where our students in healthcare and life sciences are working while they're in the program. So they're working at all these places while they're also going to school. I'm really excited to introduce our panel in a few moments, but you'll get to hear it from, their experience of them working in the field, but then also, continuing their education and bringing back all that they've learned and applying it to their jobs. And so you'll see that there's a combination of hospitals, universities, government, and pharma represented here. In the class of 2024, 21% of the cohort works in these industries. And additionally, this cohort has 18 practicing physicians. Pretty cool. And so with that said, we really want to get to the panel, as quickly as we can. And we're so excited for you to ask all your questions. I'm really excited to bring on our amazing panelists tonight, Joseph, Ruth Ann, and Kylie. So I will have each of you introduce yourselves in alphabetic order as you're listed here on the slides. So please include your full name, your class year and title, and the company that you're working at currently. So Joseph, we'll start with you.
Hi everyone, my name is Joseph. I am from EMBA 2020. I work as the Associate Chief Nursing Officer and Administrator for Harborview Medical Center, which is the only level 1 trauma center in 4 states, namely Washington, Alaska, Montana, and Idaho. I chose the EMBA program from MIT because first, its mission-driven approach and its innovative healthcare ecosystem. And finally, it really teaches you the scientific underpinnings behind healthcare management practice. That's all.
Awesome. Thank you, Joseph. And Ruth Ann, before you start, just a reminder that if you have any questions for either us on the program side or, of course, for our panelists, feel free to drop it in the Q&A function of Zoom. Ruth Ann.
My name is Ruth Ann Flegels. I'm delighted to be here. I am a physician. When I came into the program, my leadership role was vice chair of the Department of Dermatology at Brigham and Women's Hospital, which is a role I still hold. But because of my MBA, I actually now am a senior medical director at Mass General Brigham. And so now I'm working more on hospital leadership and hopefully influencing both national and global healthcare. And I graduated in 2020 with Joseph. So we're close friends from our class.
Awesome. Cool. And Kylie.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Kylie Wagner. I'm a part of the class of 2023. I can't believe I graduated this year. It is an incredible program. It's amazing. I work for Takeda Pharmaceuticals and have been in the industry for over 15 years. Currently, I'm the head of franchise marketing and customer engagement in our plasma-derived therapies sector of the business. But when I was in the program, I was chief of staff for our U.S. president for Takeda. So, where I did a lot of corporate and enterprise strategy. So you'll probably hear some stories I hear from Ruth, with the transition that we've gone through while in the program. But I'm really excited to kind of answer your questions. Why MIT? Why this program? Honestly, I looked at a lot of different programs. I have an undergrad in business. I wanted a unique program that was elevated. And I felt as though, the link to what they focused on with entrepreneurship and healthcare really just spoke to me. So looking forward to answering some more questions. Missy, Chrissy?
Awesome. Thank you all so much. So we have a great question already in the chat. Thanks, Chirag, for kicking us off. So can you all comment on how the EMBA helped your careers? And specifically, did you stay within the same company or did you go elsewhere? If for anyone who's joining us tonight, as well as the three of it is not unheard of for people to change jobs, whether they're moving up or the latter, or maybe somewhere else in their company, or switching companies or industries altogether. So can the three of you shed some light here? And Ruth Ann, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in. I feel like I've had a lot of movement in this area recently, so this is kind of an exciting area for me to talk about. So, I really chose to pursue MIT's MBA specifically as I really looked to sort of global leadership in healthcare and really realized that most of the leaders were not physicians. They had additional training in business and leadership. And so I thought that was really important. I was at Brigham and Women's Hospital primarily. I was an academic physician who does research and sees patients with rare diseases. But other than having sort of a leadership role within my department, I really wanted to grow that leadership role to be much more substantial. So since graduating, I've actually was offered two different chair positions for departments around the country, which I declined, but primarily to grow my skill set here at Mass General Brigham. And so I quickly pretty much moved into hospital leadership. And that's really an area that I more recently have enjoyed very much. And I would highlight that really, I think both of those chair offers and then this more senior leadership role at the hospital were really because of my MIT training. So, it was really the direct impact of my EMBA that allowed those career changes to occur for me, which have been fantastic. And I really appreciate everything that I learned in the program.
Awesome. Thank you. Joseph?
Hi, during the program, I was an executive director for Medicare. And as a result of my MIT MBA project, I was recruited by University of Washington Harborview Medical Center. And it's important to note when they recruited me that Seattle, where my hospital is located, was ground zero for the pandemic. So I was really being called upon to lead infection prevention and clinical practice for our level 1 trauma center. And the EMBA program simply prepared me for what was to come, because as healthcare leaders, as you know, our scope of practice is evolving and expanding. So I had to utilize supply chain management, operations management, finance to extend the dollar of the hospital. So I really feel that it prepared me to tackle complex problems in the heat of the pandemic. And now we're emerging stronger than ever. So I'm very appreciative of everything I've learned from the program and the network and friends such as Ruth Ann that I've met.
Cool. And Joseph, just keep that top of mind because I'm going to go to you after I have Kylie answer this question.
All right. Yeah, so like I was saying, during the program, I made a role transition all within Takeda. And I believe a lot of it was having to do with you heard them talk about the action learning piece, because you're going to school, you're applying it, you're asking different questions. I really do believe that people that you work with and a lot of the senior leaders start to see you differently based on how you're engaging in those conversations. And so I'd say as a result of that, I was promoted and brought in to lead and build this new team, which we call franchise marketing within our business. And so I think of the classes that I had to leverage to use was everything from operations management to accounting and finance, and really leading organizations and thinking about the best way to create new structure, build a strategy, and my areas of focus being customer engagement is focused on building our digital and omni-channel footprint, and then as well as really helping to better connect people with having access to care. So those have been the areas that if I didn't have the classes and I didn't have the critical thinking skills, I don't believe that the senior leaders would have saw me in a higher level leadership role. And so I attribute that to the education I got from the program.
Awesome. Thanks, Kylie. And so, it's funny because obviously Joseph and Ruth Ann, you are both from the class of 2020. We're talking about healthcare. Obviously, that was the year of the pandemic. And Joseph, you mentioned, the project that you did. And so can you actually talk a little bit more about, Organizations Lab or, just like what was that project that got to where where you ended up moving to, since, you know, obviously the curriculum is really tied to the three of you.
Yes, I worked on a project, a special innovation project for Medicare to improve the stroke continuum of care. So just to set some background, for every minute of delay of administering life-saving clot-busting medication, 2 million neurons die, which increase the risk for disability and death. So I utilize OLAB to eliminate non-value added steps for northern hospitals. So for example, instead of doing it step by step, they're doing everything in parallel. So normally when they bring a patient into the emergency department, they put the patient in a room. But as a result of that OLAB structure, we were able to determine that instead of going to the room, they can already go straight to the CT scan. So to determine if they are a candidate for TPA. Saving precious minutes in the process. I think we were able to save around 10 minutes, which is around 20 to 30 million neurons saved for Northern California hospitals. And just that insight, and also the network, we had a lot of leaders. We had neurologists, physicians from different disciplines that I consulted with, and they helped me to determine if the evidence-based practice approaches were applicable in real life. And it's that applicability that enabled me to bring forth that change.
Thank you for that. And Kylie, you mentioned action learning specifically. Can you talk maybe about like one of your projects or maybe one of your courses or something, you know, that you're, you know, as the most recent graduate, is there anything that you're using right now at Takeda?
The answer has to be yes, Chrissy. Every day. No, I'm just kidding. So I would say a couple things. So for my OLAB project, I actually focused on our internal hiring and talent management. So within Takeda, that was something in my previous role, I actually had quite a bit of visibility to. So that was something I focused my initiative on in order to kind of fill a gap and improve that. How do we you know, retain top talent? And so that was something that I used a lot of the tools, especially throughout the summer classes, that really helped us think through it. So system dynamics and gosh, all these balancing feedback loops, I'm having flashbacks, and then operations management and things like that. So that was great. And the only other thing, and I think you're going to mention and talk about global labs later, but you know, that being the finale semester, particularly my project, I was in Africa, so working in Mozambique and South Africa for Standard Bank. And so to, you know, talk about a moment where you're taking yourself out of your element and you're applying everything right in a different area. And so that experience, it really taught me how much I had learned. And I think probably Ruth Ann and Joseph feel this way. When you go through the program, you're moving so fast. You're like, I hope it sticks. I hope it sticks. But then you get there and you kind of surprise yourself on how much you've learned through that. And so, you know, I think the global labs, that piece of it was a really valuable experience for me.
Awesome. Yeah. And, you know, I say this every time I'm either doing a virtual event or we're on the road and we're, you know, we're with our either maybe current students or alumni in person. And everyone always says, regardless of what year they graduated, that there are still so many things that they use in their careers today. You know, it might be, you know, X amount of job changes later, but that are still applicable. And I think it's really, really incredible that, you know, you all have this like same, I think every time anyone mentions like system dynamics, everyone always goes like, yeah, you know, like the feedback loops. And so it's really cool to see that you are still utilizing your degree, right? All this time later. And, you know, to move away a little bit just from the academic part, because obviously it's not just school, right? You know, how do you stay connected with your fellow classmates, you know, post-graduation from the program? You know, I think Kylie, you're more recently removed, but Ruth Ann, you know, you graduated during the pandemic. Obviously things shifted drastically during that time too. And so how has your cohort been able to stay connected with each other?
Yeah, so this is, I think, a fantastic question. And so even for people who are really incredibly busy, I find it highly impressive how much people stay in contact. So I kind of joke, but I see several of my classmates as patients now. But also, we have class dinners in Boston. People literally fly in for electives every year, and we have lots of kind of fun events scheduled during that 4-day period. Our classes like plan trips together to various places since we graduated. Um, there's groups who actually work together and have done startups together. One of the people I graduated with when I started my Mass General Brigham job actually works in the hospital leadership at Mass General Brigham. And so, we of course immediately connected and are going to work together more moving forward. So, I mean, in many, many ways, and I think the really neat thing is even my international classmates, I feel like are very connected to the cohort. So one of my extremely close friends from the cohort is Japanese, Kentaro. Joseph knows him well also. But, it's just really incredible that you can have these lifelong connections to even the people who are coming in from international locations, taking 20-hour late flights and red eyes to get to class, and just really even more, so impressive. And all those people really maintain the strong connection. And then the last comics, I think I'm talking too much on this answer, but my husband was fortunate enough to do a Sloan fellowship. Obviously, I liked the program so much, I made my husband do something afterwards. But it's really been interesting because when he finished, and now he's starting to look for a job because he worked for a startup this summer, my classmates are also connecting to him to help him with that process. So it's not only your own class, it's the other classes. It's really this network of Sloan Fellows, EMBAs, people who graduated from the other MBA program years ago who will be willing to support you. So this overall Sloan network is extremely strong.
Thank you for that, Ruth Ann. And I was going to say that as well. It doesn't matter. It's, what cohort you're in. I've heard this from many alums. It's, you ask a question in like the main, like, EMBA alumna chat, and, people are willing to help. And even if they don't actually know you, but they know that you went through the program, it's, so you all know that you're cut from the same cloth in a sense. And so that willingness to help out and to stay connected too, I think is so important. Joseph or Kylie, do either of you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I want to build upon what Ruth Ann said. Actually, when I was recruited by University of Washington Medicine, I was very hesitant because I was from Los Angeles, and I realized I had 4 classmates from the EMBA program here. So they welcomed me with open arms. When I had my housewarming party, they attended. I actually just had breakfast with Jurgen last week, which is from the aviation industry, and also had dinner with another classmate, Kenny, around 2 weeks ago. So we're very, very close. And speaking of the international aspect of the program, when I went to Japan, I actually met with 2 of our classmates, Kentaro and Mitz, and they showed me around. But I think the network and the friends that you'll meet is the key value proposition of the program. But more importantly, they maximize my learning. So, for example, if I have a question about dermatology and clinical practice, I can just get on the phone with Ruth Ann. So you almost accelerate your learning because of the people that you will meet here.
Awesome. Yeah, Kylie.
I just wanted to add on one piece, which is, what surprised me the most, right? I probably came for, of course, the academics. And what surprised me was the community that was built and the class that you were within. And I have to, give credit to this group on the line that's hosting this call, because the advisors and the amount of time they spend and how strategic they are in finding these like-minded individuals. It's like somehow you magically found 126 of your like closest friends that think the same way. Oh gosh, you kind of get each other. And I think it's because of that you really just develop such a strong bond that leads to everything that Ruth Ann and Joseph is saying. So I think that's another value add to the uniqueness of this program that I don't believe, at least I didn't find, that you could get anywhere else. So, kudos to the team on that.
Well, thank you for that. I think, the three people being able to meet people like the three of you, during the admissions process makes our jobs easier. And so hopefully all of you on the webinar tonight are feeling the same way and are excited about your application. Moving on, since we have a ton of questions coming in, Farah has a great question about managing a full-time job while going back to school. I know that is definitely something that was probably a concern for all of you. And so what were some of the challenges that you faced, and what recommendations or suggestions do you have for any incoming students, people that are thinking about going back to school while also keeping that full-time job? And I'll let any of you take this.
I can chime in because I think I get teased about this a lot, because I had a full-time physician job at Harvard. I was a vice chair. I do research. I see rare orphan disease patients. I travel to lecture. And when I started this program, I had a 10-month-old and a two-year-old. And when I graduated, I had a baby the month after I graduated. And now I have another baby, and now I'm done. But so I really had my plate full when I did this program. And what I would say is that it's manageable, but you want to do the work because that's how you're going to learn. And the work is very, very engaging. And I think especially for those of us who have healthcare backgrounds, like a lot of it is like drinking from a fire hose, right? You're going to learn so much that's really going to expand your horizons and your ability to do a phenomenal job in the roles that you are currently doing and that you will be doing in the future. And so I think it's very different from perhaps some of the coursework you did when you might have been younger and thought, oh, I have to get through this, et cetera. Like, this is really a phenomenal opportunity to learn and advance your skill sets and learn from these incredible peers. And then the one final comment about this I'll make is, I really chose to do this type of MBA versus a healthcare MBA. And I think it's really critical because you really want to bring skill sets from other industries to healthcare and improve healthcare in that way. And I think you can only do that if you learn from people in other industries and other fields. And I think it's really, really crucial that likely the leaders in healthcare who have the best chance to bring innovation and development have often trained in an arena such as this, where you really can learn from people who are in the aviation industry or in finance. And so one, I think you'll want to do the work. The work is phenomenal. Your peers are phenomenal. And really, it's doable. It's manageable even with a full-time job. The program understands. You know when your heavy periods are going to be, and you can plan accordingly. And when you'll have a little bit of a lighter time, can spend more time with your family, friends, loved ones, et cetera. They make it manageable, and it's fantastic.
Awesome.
If I could just add a couple thoughts on it. I was scared about that piece of it. I'm sure, we're all overachievers, let's face it. Even all of you on this line that are here tonight. I'll give you the advice that someone told me when I was going through this process is, hey, Kylie, you're smart. You're going to figure it out, right? You're going to prioritize just like you prioritize at work. You're going to learn how to say no to really good things, which you get really good at in this program, because you need to stay focused on the right pieces. I think the biggest piece is making sure, your significant other and your boss are bought into this. And if you have their endorsement and you're staying close to them throughout it, then you will absolutely succeed. So you have to go for it.
Yeah, it definitely, it's not easy. I'm not gonna lie, but it's doable, and it's the work is very fulfilling. One advice I can give is to create integration between your job and the EMBA program. So, for example, for the Medicare Special Innovation Project I was working on, that was my OLAB project. So I wasn't doing duplicative work, but I was elevating my practice as a consequence of my admission to the EMBA. So if you can leverage those assignments to improve your performance at your job, I think that's the way that's how I survive. And also have have a discussion with your peers and supervisors as well, so that you have situational awareness when you're dropping the ball at work, because in the end you will need their support, because there are times in this program where the workload will stretch you.
Thank you for bringing up that point, that buy-in that you need both on the professional side and also the personal side, right? I think it's a given that you'll need buy-in from the people that you are reporting to, because you will have to take time off to travel, right? Regardless of where you're traveling in from, because you can't work that Friday. But also if there are people that you're managing, you do need to be concerned about, like, hey, like who can you mentor that can step in and fill your shoes while you're gone? Like, this is a great opportunity for you to help build up other people on your team, or maybe on other teams, and be a source of inspiration for other people that you're working with. Then on the personal side too, knowing that you'll have to, your priorities will need to shift, things will need to juggle, and that's okay. I tell everyone that 20 months, it seems like a long time, but you also know when it'll end, right? You know which weekends that you're going to be on campus. And the other great thing about, this program is that we understand that you do need that buy-in, right? And so we make sure to integrate the other people in your lives too. So in November, this past month, we actually just had Significant Others Weekend, where you can bring your significant other. We've had people that, bring a very close friend to campus for the weekend. In April, we invite you to bring your bosses, or, if you have a startup, anyone that you're working with. And then in July, we have Family Weekend, which is one of my favorite weekends on campus, where your families come to campus, and we turn it into a carnival. And so we understand that the time that you are taking away from the program, but we also want to make sure that the people in your life, see everything that you're also getting out of this, right? It's a heavy lift for everyone too. So thank you for mentioning that. And so, one of the other questions that came in is, what are some of the most impactful things net new to you? So like brand new things that you learned through the program, and how have they helped you? And so obviously, like, you're coming in with a very specific niche, industry. What was maybe something surprising that you learned in a class that you never thought you would take, that you find that you're using now?
I'm gonna joke, but say it's like almost everything, right? So like when I started this program, I remember, they gave us a talk on the first day, and I was like, I don't even know what these acronyms are they're talking about. I was like, I only know medical lingo, right? I didn't even know the business words, right? So everything I learned was like really different than any schooling I'd had, even though I'd already had an MD and an MPH. Everything was different and everything was new. So what I would say is, like, my favorite class was actually accounting, which I think most people find funny, but the accounting class was phenomenal and has helped me in many, many ways in leadership roles, both in my department and at the hospital. I really loved OLAB and finance, but to be honest with you, especially for people who are in healthcare backgrounds, like, most of this is going to be new, and all of it is applicable. And it's really amazing, I think, in how many arenas of your job you'll realize you can sort of improve the functioning, improve the efficiency, improve sort of the innovation by just using these skill sets you're learning in classes, because you just don't have that background. And most of the people you work with don't have that background.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Kylie or Joseph, anything else to add?
I will also say accounting was my favorite, Ruth Ann. I thought it was phenomenal.
I knew someone
Amazing.
would say something
So
really
geeky.
Yeah.
I know. I'm like, I can't believe I said that, but for real, it was fun. He made it so fun. I know that sounds even nerdier, but so that was great. There also was another class, Discovering Your Leadership Signature. It's a fall elective that, that was another game changer class for me. And really, it's just focused on who are you as the leader you are, and why are you that way? And it helps you kind of reflect and understand yourself better. And really, it's all about storytelling. And so I thought that was an incredible class that's valuable in any role that you kind of move through.
Awesome. Joseph.
I think one class that really stood out was system dynamics, because you'll discover that everything is intricately intertwined inside and outside your organization. So it will help you predict outcomes from the reinforcing loops and the balancing loops. So that was a very thought-provoking class for me.
Awesome. Thank you. Cristobal asked a great question. Was there anything that you learned from your non-healthcare peers that you adopted into your healthcare practice? Since, we all know that, of course, you're learning from the amazing faculty that we have at MIT Sloan, but you're also learning from each other, right? Because you are all, mid-career executive leaders in your field. So is there anything that you learned from your classmates that you continue to think about or use today?
Simple example for those of us in healthcare, efficiency, practice improvement, learning from companies who've done this well for a long time. We did course examples, for example, even how like fast food chains, like how does that work? Automotive chains, like really learning how to operationalize and achieve practice efficiency. These are things like we never learn in traditional healthcare, and we not only learn from our coursework, but we learn from our peers. And so, for example, we also did a medical case, how to improve the efficiency of pre-op in a hospital. And so there was many non-medical examples, but there was also a case from the healthcare arena in that course. And all of the sort of practical tips I learned from that helped me to this day. And most of the things I learned were from my non-healthcare peers in my class.
Awesome. Kylie or Joseph, do either of you have anything? And if not, that's also okay. Cool. And that's all. That's fine. Actually, since we're coming up on time, but I do want to get Renato's question squeezed in here. And so before we close, if you were to redo the EMBA, what would you maybe do better to maximize the value of our time? AKA, how would you, advise people to maybe prepare for this program if this is something that they're thinking about applying to? What piece of advice do you have for everyone here tonight?
I can kick that one off. I'd say a couple things. First, as you guys are going through the application process, I identified a couple prerequisite classes that I needed to take. And so it was almost like a trial run. Like, how are you an adult learner? How do you work and study? And so I think even if you don't do that, figure out early on how you learn best. Like for me, it was in the morning, right? If I could wake up early, I could get reading done, then I could plug into work. For me, that was the most productive use of time in order to do a little bit each day and not, make it, put it all on the weekend. You can't, you've got to kind of find that schedule. And so I think if you schedule time to study, then you're really successful in it, because then it doesn't creep up on you. If I were to do it again, I guess the one thing is, you heard on one of the previous slides, all the clubs and events, and there's so much you can kind of get tapped into. That was something that, gosh, you blink and a semester goes by. And so just, identify what's most important, what gets you excited, focus on one or two things, and then get involved in those communities. Don't feel like you have to tackle everything. So that's probably something I would do even better.
That's great advice. Thank you. Ruth Ann?
I would say for me, I had a 10-month-old. So the first semester, I didn't do as much of the evening events as I wish I had. And of course, that was a little bit out of necessity, but looking back, these times with your classmates outside of the classroom are extremely important. And so, after the first 6 months, I really got into the swing of it. But I think it's important if you're coming from outside, like I think about trying to stay Saturday night or coming in, Thursday afternoon to check out, we're allowed to do other things on the MIT campus, and to just, be with your class, because your class is incredible. The class is just such a goldmine of experience and just kindness and a wealth of knowledge. So just make sure you make the time to do that. And I think maybe for the physicians on the call, I found it most helpful. I didn't think the work in terms of, you know, the rigor was you will be able to do it, right? You went to medical school, you will be able to do this. You just need to schedule the time, right? Because for us, the time is really, really important so you can actually learn. So for example, for me, I found on one of my non-clinical days that I blocked 4 hours on Wednesdays to really be dedicated to my MIT time. Now, granted, that didn't work every week, but at least I had it blocked off. You know, my colleagues knew, my assistant knew, that was really time I was supposed to dedicate to my MIT work. So that at least got me a chunk of time during the week that I could really commit to on a regular basis. And I found that to be the most helpful because as we know, otherwise our physician lives just sort of eat into all of our time. But again, I think I would just want to highlight that the work is doable and it's just such a high return on investment that I'd really encourage you all to strongly consider it.
Thanks, Ruth Ann. And Joseph?
I think my advice would be quality over quantity as well. Every weekend there's something going on, but try to be selective as well on what fills your cup, because sometimes you're going to be forced to attend events that at the end are not value added. That being said, I do regret most of the things that I regret in the program are the things that I did not do. So just finding that balance and try to maximize your learning with all of the certificates and the learning opportunities from talks from the Google leaders to CEO fireside chats. Try to really take advantage of that because there's no other place in the world that can offer that.
My goodness, thank you, all three of you, so much. Joseph, Ruth Ann, Kylie. It is always such a pleasure to chat with y'all. I'm excited that you will be on campus for electives in January, so we'll see you then. But thank you again so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate your time. And so, you know, we do have other things that we need to just quickly get to. Of course, the application deadlines. And so you'll notice that our early round is coming up next week, December 7th. And just a note that we are making sure that you all know that as long as you apply by 11:59 p.m. Eastern time on those deadline dates in the second column, you will get a decision by the dates in that third column. So just make a note of that. Our application is open. We hope that you will apply soon. And we do have other EMBA events coming up. So you'll actually see Amber in Europe next week. She's flying out. They will be in London and Madrid. We're doing a little hybrid event. We're also going to be doing a joint info session on both the EMBA and the Sloan Fellows MBA program, which Ruth Ann's husband was a part of as well. Like Mike said, or someone maybe said this earlier, that we have a sustainability panel coming up next month. Technology panel will be in January, and then we'll be hitting the road once more at the middle to the end of January in Texas. So you'll see us there, and you see the website for all of our upcoming events. You'll see more for the 2024 year. And with that said, thank you so much for attending. Regardless of what time it is for you, thank you so much for carving out this time to spend with us. If you have any questions or want to learn more, you have our website right there. Feel free to email us directly at that email address and we will get back to you. But thank you so much for joining us all tonight. Amber and Mike, thank you again for your time and help. Panelists, thank you once more. We'll see you soon. And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again soon at another event. Bye, everyone.